let's just go down a slightly different pathway. We talked a little bit about feeds and we talked about that cell, okay? It's quite, important to understand where feed is. And one of the things we talked about was feed testing. And I guess, if you're buying lots of feed, understanding feed becomes a very important part of your business. And if you don't understand feed tests, okay, if you're buying any more than a load of feed a year, all right, then, there's some stuff that you can probably learn from the next few minutes. Feed tests, you can think it's really, really complicated, but if we think about there's 5 core ingredients to any feed once we take the water out, all right? And this is pretty simple. What we have is what we call the NDF portion or the fibre, all right? So some of this fibre is digestible, some of it isn't. We've got what we call the non-functional carbohydrates. These are things like sugars and starches, okay? Highly digestible, good source of readily available energy for ruminants. We've got fat. Okay, most feed will have fat in it of some sort. Okay, we've got low-fat feed like standing grass and hay tend to be quite low. Some of our pastures can be up to 4 or 5% fat. All right. So if ever you've seen a cow pat sit out there and the water on top of it and that sort of oily ring in it, that can be from actual fat in the grass. There's quite a bit of it there. And then we've got some high-fat feeds, things like palm kernel meal. All right, and that fat can be used as energy to the cow as long as it doesn't exceed a certain amount of fat. We won't go into the numbers because we won't remember it anyway. Then we've got protein, okay, and sources of protein. Okay, what we call crude protein. Now, crude protein's a lab measurement. Basically, it looks at the amount of nitrogen and it multiplies it by about 6.25. But there's different forms of protein chopped into that. Some of it's readily available. Some of it's actually non-protein nitrogen, or what we call things like urea, okay? And there's other products like urea in feed. Ruminants are pretty cool because the bacteria can suck that stuff in and grow more bugs out of it, all right, to a point. So we've got true protein and we've got non-protein nitrogen, and that all sits within crude protein, and then we've got ash, all right? So on any feed test, these 5 things are going to add up pretty close to 100%, all right? Now, what happens with things add up to 100%, okay, is that if one goes up, the others have to come down because it's all got to keep adding up to 100%, right? So when we look at a feed test, the thing which is most variable is what we call the NDF or the fibre, all right? And basically, the bigger that fibre portion gets, the less room there is for the other goodies, okay? So we can talk about ME, we can talk about protein, we can talk about digestibility, but if you're looking at 2 sets of oat hays, the first thing you should probably ask the question on is which one's got the lowest NDF, the lowest fibre, because you work backwards from that and it tells you the rest of the story, all right? And as the NDF goes up, everything else goes down. And the other thing that happens as NDF goes up, the actual digestibility of that fibre goes down as well, all right? So like against like, we look at dry matter, we look at NDF. We'll also talk a bit about ME and stuff as well. So feed tests. Here's a couple of feed tests. Okay, can you guys read that? What's the first thing you see on this feed test? These are both wheat hays, and this is some of the stuff that was starting to get plugged around and sold early on when they were starting to harvest quite early this year. There's a couple of things that really stand out on these feed tests. All right, what's the normal dry matter of hay? What should it be? About 90%, all right? 85 plus at a minimum, 90%. So if you're actually getting hay that's 71.6% dry matter, there's a couple of things you need to be aware of. Firstly, you need to have a really good fire insurance policy, okay? Because this stuff's going to spontaneously combust in your shed if you get it back. But the second thing, what this probably is, if it's that low and it's been sold to you as a hay feed test, it's probably been picked up out of the paddock and tested rather than come out of the bale. So what the producer's done here is that they've gone out 2 days before it's been baled and taken a sample and sent that off, okay? Because if it's coming like that in a bale, it's going to be smoking by the time it gets to you. So that's just a little bit of a warning sign when you're looking at a feed test. The second thing here, which is really interesting and starts telling a story, is look at the NDF on that cereal hay, 43.5%. That is nearly as good as vegetative ryegrass. This is extraordinarily high quality feed, okay? If someone comes at you with wheat hay that's got an NDF of 45% and you're buying hay, you buy it, all right? Now, This one here, it's still reasonable. The NDF is 59%. So there's about nearly 20, well, it's about 15, 16% more fibre in this hay compared to that hay. And it's interesting because that then correlates directly with the energy density. So the energy density here is 11.3, really low NDF. The energy density here is 59, sorry, the NDF is 59. The energy density here is 8.5. Okay, so there is this direct correlation there between energy density and NDF. Now, this is a much better hay because to do the same amount of good in your herd, however you're feeding, you probably need 25% less of it. Okay? If you are production feeding, and generally when we're production feeding, we're trying to get things to eat more, all right? They can eat more of this. That's a good thing, all right? The energy required to maintenance on these animals will be less than these animals. All right? There's a whole heap of stuff here that with a bit of basic feed testing, if these were coming at you at the same price, or even if this one was a little bit more expensive and you could do the numbers on it, this would be better buying. All right? Feed tests are important when you're buying lots of feed. Okay, here's another one. This is some good hay that's been properly dried out. All right? This is at 92.3. That's what you want to see. That's pretty cool. The NDF's 49. Fantastic hay, yeah? Good cereal hay. Now once that gets over 60, that NDF, we're really starting to drop in digestibility, and what you'll see is that ME, that energy level drops to around 8 or less. What do we got here? Another good wheat hay. Yeah, no, not quite as good this one. So this has got an NDF of 52, all right? But yeah, look, and again, that energy lower again than this other one. Okay, what do we see here? This all came to me from some beef clients I work with down at Orange. They've got a large holding down at Harden as well where they do cereals and they make hay off that they bought back because of failed crop. So these are failed crop hays. So there's some important stuff here. Did any of you guys feed canola hay during this drought? Yeah, cool. Okay, it can be excellent, it can be horrid. You know, it can be both. And there's a couple of good reasons why. You know, your proteins are quite good, okay, on canola hays. All right, your energy, okay, and this is quite an important concept here. The energy's here, where are we? Down here, 9.9, 9.2. And you say, geez, they look quite low because these NDFs are reasonably low as well. Canola hay, and this is why you've got to be really careful when you're comparing completely different types of forage. You can't just look at the NDFs between those, all right? You've got to look at the NDFs between a canola hay and another canola hay, a wheat hay and a wheat hay, or a cereal hay. Because what happens with both legumes and brassicas, as they mature, all right, the NDF may not be as high, but the digestibility of that NDF just crashes through the floor. They become woody as all get out, okay? The second thing, has anyone seen it that you want to be looking at here? This bad boy, okay, the nitrates. Okay, so if you are buying canola hay in drought, nitrates are really, really important, all right? You must have them screened because this sort of level of nitrate, which has come from a stressed canola hay, now it's interesting, these are all off the same farm. This would be safe. This could potentially cause abortion and major dietary upsets with your cattle, okay? And we've seen a lot of this happen, and we've had some sudden deaths from canola hay as well. And the challenges with canola hay is that you could have a corner of a paddock that's highly stressed with some really hot bales in it that might be very high in nitrates, and the rest of it could be fine. And you've only got the feed test of what you go. So look, we use canola hay, but with caution. And if there's alarm bells like that, you know, the way we're using this on this farm is that they've got a mixer wagon. We've been blending that back with wheat hay, okay, to safeten that ration up, and we've had no issues at all. So just be careful with canola hay, but it can be good. Okay, cost per tonne dry matter, it's important just to think this through, pretty simple equations, okay, and again, if you're buying by a tonne, all right, once you do a dry matter correction on that, and these are just some examples of some dry matter corrections, and again, I'd imagine we'll have an uploadable version of this presentation for people. It just shows you how something that looks like $140 a tonne, if it's 35% dry matter, suddenly becomes $400 a tonne dry matter, okay? And similarly, there's a big range, and this is just there to present the huge range that you do see in feeds, okay? And again, this is where your feed testing becomes important, because just because it's lucerne hay, just because it's oat hay, just because it's wheat hay, very different commodity. Did you guys have a look at this? I mean, I think this is a really cool thing that's come out of DPI. Okay, this is their feed ready reckoner. And what it allows you to do, it's just an app. Okay, and for those of you that are into apps, this is actually a really cool one, I think. You can basically put in 2 feeds on that app and look at that landed price on farm. You can put in your dry matter percentages and it actually starts telling you very quickly, you know, without having to do the calculations, that $1 per tonne of dry matter. All right. The cost per kilogram of protein, very different, and the cost per cents per megajoule. So it's giving you the value of that energy and what you're actually paying for it. So I reckon this is a terrific little tool if you've got 2 feed tests and you're not quite sure what to do with them. You know, something like this actually gives you some really nice real-time information to help with your decision making.